Good morning and welcome to your Daily Game Face. I am Dr. Kim Lannon. I am here this morning on April Fool's Day. It's a foolish day to be out and about.
Yes.
Be careful. Be careful. I had to remind myself that last night of it's a prankster day tomorrow.
Every day is April Fool's Day.
No, it's Groundhog Day.
2026.
Well, that's true.
It's all April Fool's Day.
Oh, God. Yeah. So good morning.
Good morning.
Lou. I'm here with Lou. Lou's got all his hairs cut.
I know.
They look good. All of them cut evenly. Yeah. Beautiful. That looks good. Excellent.
Yeah. Nice. Finally, one of those overcompensation haircuts.
No, I think it looks
great. I had
great.
enough and I said, just cut it.
Just took it all off.
Just cut it.
Just cut it all off. Yeah. Well,
I'll deal with it in June.
when it's needing to be cut again?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, welcome to the show. I am excited.
That's the word you want to use?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you come up with a different word. Okay. So one, I'm thankful. That is the word I want to use. I'm so thankful because my event that I had this weekend, out of the 12 years I've been doing the Boston Marathon events, raising money, which I've raised over $150,000 plus over my years. And that's just a estimate, right? Which I was telling on my live that no one could really hear over the weekend, as people were said, I was clutching to my wine glass, which I'll explain.
Yeah.
I've raised a ton of money, but this weekend was epic. First of all, thankful to Time Out Market Boston and the managing marketing director from there. She put together an amazing venue for me. And it was difficult, obviously, for the comedians because it is a very open space, but I highly recommend. Noah Khan has performed there. He has his pre and post show there. They have all kinds of different really cool things going. So I want to promo out to them because they did they just did a fantastic job of graphics for me. They had it all over all the screens. It was very accommodating. And I would say there were hundreds of people in the market space itself for the whole thing. They did a pop-up event so people could come and see the comedy show that Dave and Mike were doing, that if they didn't want to pay to come into my space, that they could come at least watch. And so it gave them some exposure. It was just it was a rough space, but I'm not going to focus on that for comedians, but they did a great job. And I'm thankful because I raised $8,000 in change.
Congratulations.
And it was really cool. And I am still, so now I put out that I wanted to hit 15, but then on the weekend I said, I'm going to hit for 20. And so I'm just shy of 20. So I'm very competitive. So now I'm like, I've got 3.5 weeks left till the marathon. And I'm like, I'm going to try to push for 20. So all the listeners out there, if you are so inclined, and I still have some prizes left over because lots of people, bid on my auction items and my raffles and did the 50-50 and did all these things. But I still have I have a couple things left. So if people are interested, I do have a Taylor Swift signed CD and frame, CD and cover. And it's really, really, really nice. And I'm surprised it didn't go, but it's beautiful if you're a Taylor Swift fan.
Yep.
And then I had some other things available. So if people are interested, I can certainly post a list. But most things went, and that's why I ended up with 8 and change. So I'm just shy of 20,000 by like 1,000 and change.
Oh, wow.
So after, I had to do some payouts for people that did things for me, but it would have been probably 20,000, but I had to do things to make sure people got, paid. So that's how it works.
2 weeks, you're going to hit that.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm going to not put myself out there into a space because of what I talked about last week. People were so interested last week after the show about what was going on. So I'm not going to go into the details, much to everybody's disappointment about that. It did obviously work out sort of my end of what I needed to do about what I was practicing, what I was preaching to everybody last week about how to really make sure that you do what you need to do to help yourself and speak up and all those things and not worry about what other people think. Worked beautifully, and it kept working beautifully. And I'm going to go back to that and expand on the show from last week, like I promised, but it worked great. So the outcome was not on me. So therefore I did what I needed to do and kept my peace bubble, and therefore it worked.
Do your job.
I did my job, and therefore that's what I needed to do and not let the other stuff come in on me. The overall weekend, I will tell you that you have to protect your energy so much, because the amount of work that goes into running a marathon, working full time, which, I work like double full time,
Yep.
essentially, running the marathon, and also fundraising. So I had done, like, I've been doing fundraisers all along since November.
Right.
So this was the big one. The amount of mental space it takes and exhaustion. So I did that on Saturday, and I, loaded in, loaded out all the stuff on Saturday, then turned around and did a wellness fair in Andover for Fitness Together on Sunday morning that went screamingly successful. It was a free event for people to show up to, all kinds of neat pop-up holistic and naturopathy and different companies that had come in, 15 different companies. And we did this for Amy Salon and her fitness place. Highly recommend it to go for personal training. I have a whole bunch of things that came out of that, but I was there for 4 hours, then turned around and went and prepped for Monday and went up to the mountains and did a 16-mile training run in the mountains.
Yeah.
And then I hit a wall.
That'll happen.
On Monday evening, my body was like, body and mind said, no more. You are spent. So yeah. So
we need to have a word.
We need to have a word. I need to have a word with myself. So it was a lot. And that's why I'm only saying to people like, hey, if you want to help kick me over the 20,000 mark and help get, to be safe, $1,500 in there, and you want to go donate, please do it. I'm not going to put on any more events. I'm not giving anything more away other than what I've got. I might do some more posts just because, but I am on now just marathon mode. So I have 3 weeks and change-ish for the marathon. I think it's just 3 weeks now. And I'm excited. I am excited about that. I'm looking forward to that, I think. And I still have a broken toe, and it was not bothering me on the mountain run, but my calf was. But that's, I think, because of the pitch of the road.
Well, when do you turn the page and get focused on the marathon?
That's what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Well, when I ran the 16 miles is when I turned the page. However, it just came on the heels of the weekend. But, when you run the Kankamangas, now, if people are not from the Northeast and don't know about running up in the White Mountains, the Kankamangas is an elevation gain and drop of a lot. Yeah. And 16 miles on that is a lot. And I was clipping at about 8-minute and 57 second pace. And I was going way too fast, because that's way beyond what I would normally do on just a flat road or on Boston course, because I don't do that. I'm an 11-minute, try to hold the pace kind of thing. So I think I overdid it.
Okay, so you probably know the answer to this question I've always had about the Kangamarings. How's the cell phone coverage?
The cell phone coverage, once you get past Lincoln Woods out of Lincoln, is horrific.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised you're doing 16 miles on the Kangamangas.
Well, I had support team.
Okay.
I had a support team that was very nervous about the fact that I was doing that, because it's very desolate, as we know. And I actually thought of that. But I take things with me, as you know. I have things on me.
Yeah.
So,
But still.
There were only 5 cars the entire. I was out for about 2 hours and 45 minutes ish, and there were 5 cars. That's it on it. So it was great, because one, it's off season. There's still snow. It was a beautiful day. It was like 60 something degrees. It was sunny. It was very nice. It was lovely. And but it was a lot.
Yeah.
So, but now I'm in that mode. But I'm very excited about my success of the event, and I couldn't do it without other people helping me. And I'm so thankful to all the people that came out and all the people that continue to support year after year after year, because without them, I wouldn't be able to do what I did. Yep. Because everyone's always like, oh, you do so much great work. I'm like, well, I just set these things up, and then people do. Right. So it's the doing of others that help me do.
But you've had a banner year.
And I have had a very good year of fundraising and getting good funds to New England charities. And I'm very proud of that. And it's very different when you get it donated from one sponsor versus hundreds. And I'm very proud that I get it from hundreds. And it takes a lot more work, but hey, you know what? I have a lot of supporters, and I'm very thankful to that. So, and that is on the heels of what I was going to bring in today about how to stay motivated when you have people that are sucking you down and not, their opinion, it's about last week's show, right?
Yep.
About how, when your motivation gets sucked away from you because other people don't show up for you, aren't supportive, and you have to keep your mindset reset. So as part of Rise. So I sort of like had that quick, tight show last week because I was having my moment. And I'm out of my moment today. Yep. My moment passed and it was a success for me.
Yep.
But anyway, so in general, so to recap that, it's a really tough situation. And honestly, it's so common for people to, one, worry about what other people think and how to keep your motivation up when people's opinions get in the way. And so when the people around you aren't supportive, or they're partially supportive, it can slowly drain you because it creates that self-doubt. And without you even realizing it, sometimes you can lose track of where you were going, what goals you had. And so the key is really learning how to keep yourself motivated by self-containment is what I'm going to call it.
Okay.
Self-containment. That's what I came up with, self-containment, last week after we had that conversation in the show last week, because I'm like, I have to self-contain in order to maintain my own peace bubble, and also to be dependent on my own environment versus the external environment. We focus on, a lot of times, people focusing so much externally, but internally it's where you have to stay to get your own satisfaction out of self-containment.
Right.
So out of that concept, as I was running down the Kankomegas by myself in the desolate, bear-ridden, moose-ridden, crazy spot, I was thinking about how to build that self-containment. And what I thought of is, because I was thinking about running, internal fuel, the term in my head of having internal fuel instead of relying on others, and how important that it is to fuel yourself, not fuel from others. And we get fueled by others every day, and we rely way too heavily on that. And it's not perfect either, because, of course, we need love and belonging and acceptance and connection and all the things that make us feel connected, right? But at the end of the day, when we don't fully have that, or we don't have that at all, which I know people in both personal and professional life that don't have that at all, and they struggle through, building internal fuel instead of relying on others is, I think, key to what I was talking about last week. Right. Yep. And if support isn't coming from outside, you have to generate it from your inside. And so get really clear on what it is that you're doing, and not be vague or specific, because the more people crab in the bucket you and pull at you, the more vague your mindset becomes, because you lose track of what it was you were actually focusing on and what you were doing, because then you're listening to the back chatter.
You chip your focus to accommodate other people.
Right. And last week I called it like that back chatter, that noise that you should be pushing back out of your head. You focus too much on that, and then you lose the wave of the fueling that you're doing for yourself, because you're like, oh, someone said this and now it's got me off my game. Right.
Yep.
So it's about, the whole reason why my company is called Gameface is you got to keep your game face on. So that's the internal fueling, right? So you're getting really clear on your why. And remember, your why is not about like, I want to make money. You have to have a why that is about why you're doing something that is so specific of the to the fuel itself. So there could be 15 whys, because you have 15 different things you're fueling. Like if you're running a marathon, if you're raising money, if you're or you're buying a new property, you're trying to build your business, you're trying to change jobs, you're buying a house, like they're all different things. So your why has to be really specific of what it is you're doing for the why. And as long as you can keep that in perspective without it getting off kilter, that internal fuel will stay present, right? And so I tell people, write it down daily so you see it. Write it down. Don't, write it down and keep it with you. Like I have people put stickies, about things everywhere, but take a moment every day and write it down, like your main internal fueled like goal. Like write it down, and of course, always repeating this, track the small win of the day.
Yeah.
You have to stack the win. You have to track it so you can see the progress, even if it was just that you focused on it today. People think that that isn't enough. If you just have it in your mindset all day long that I have to, because there's some days you cannot do something about something, right? But if your mindset is in that space, then that's a stackable win because you were able to keep that mindset in there. And you don't need someone else to acknowledge it. You don't need anybody else to tell you good job, even though it's nice to have that because that's the connection that we look for in life because we're mammals and we do look for that. You don't need it.
Yep.
And people believe that they need to have someone say atta girl or atta boy. And I totally agree that yes, occasionally you do need that, but try to draw from within so you don't get derailed.
Well, they feel they need it because they can't draw satisfaction from their own accomplishments.
Right. Because
they don't have any internal validation.
Right.
They don't pay attention to that.
And likely because they haven't been taught that.
Yep.
And or it's been taught out of them because that's a very socialized norm of like, growing up as kids of, don't be proud of yourself, essentially. I mean, our era in generation was essentially they knocked out like, don't be proud of yourself because that's being egotistical. That's being too much about yourself. It's like, wait a second, that's actually not a good message at all. We know, right?
It's not pride, it's confidence.
It's confidence. And there's a big difference between being a narcissist and egotistical versus or ego driven, which we're all ego driven. Our reality manager, ego is reality, right? So we're all reality based.
Yep.
Well, not all of us. Actually,
to a degree.
To a degree. Wait a second. Let me roll that one back. Hold on. We all function on our own reality base. Let me put it that way.
Yep.
So when we fuel our internal ourselves, think of external as a bonus.
Right.
Right. Think of
dessert.
Right. External validation is like your bonus dessert. It's not a requirement. It's just like a little perk.
Right.
Right. So it's like when someone says, good job, right? Great. Right. That's what matters in that moment.
Yep.
But you don't need it.
Right.
And that's why when someone says, well, it matters what other people think. No, it doesn't. If you know you did a good job, if you know you're on your path, if you know you have done something good today to get you further on your path, you don't need someone to tell you or acknowledge it. And if you do, that's something that's a them issue or it's a you issue. You have to look at it and have like a self-reflective moment.
Yeah.
So important. Okay. So
you do have some external responsibilities, especially in a team setting.
Yeah. Well, if you're in a team setting, yes.
Yeah.
If you're in a team setting, everybody is supposed to have their external responsibility towards the team because the team is the one, right? That's preserving you're refueling the internal energy of the team, right?
So if your motivation is personal, you're going against that to an extent.
Right. If it's solely personal, right, you're going to derail the team in some way, likely, right? Which is why a lot of teams do fail. Fail. They're not as successful as they could be, right? So yes. Okay. So the next piece that I'm going to add in there to add on last week is reducing your exposure rate to discouraging people or input.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard, right?
It is hard.
It's so, because especially if you live with it or you work with it.
Yeah.
Because that's where most of our external points is people we live with and people we work with. So being able to reduce your exposure.
And it's so widespread.
That's why this is one of the biggest afflictions. And I started talking about it last week. It was like, okay, stop worrying about what everybody else thinks. It's hard to reduce your level of,
because you're swimming in
resources,
it, basically.
Right? Your exposure base.
Not to be overly negative, but people swim in it.
Well, and that becomes the norm, and it's such a big norm. So you really have to reduce your exposure and discourage discouraging input by being protective of your space. And it's, I tell all my clients, space, your peace bubble, get your peace bubble. And I'm very visual with it. I make sure I talk about it. I talk about it as like a force field. It's not a defense mechanism. We're not putting up a wall. It's transparent. However, because we want it to be transparent, but because we want to be able to see what we need to see.
Yep. And
we want people to also see and to say, oh, there's a boundary there that I can't cross. Right. Because you have to be able to have input. And last week I talked about it in terms of, if you are not an expert in the situation, and you're giving unsolicited information, that's input that needs to be discouraged, right? Only solicit or get information from people who are experts in the area that, or that you think are going to be models for that. That doesn't mean across the board. It means maybe in that particular situation, there's going to be people that are going to help you financially that, if you have a parent that's a financial disaster, do not go to them for input on your financial status, right? So find the people that are going to help exemplify you in the best ways possible of getting you forward. So you don't always need to confront people about this. You don't always have to go at them and say, you're getting in my way, especially people you live with. You just have to be able to protect your own energy by being aware that it's there.
That's an important point, because many people think that's an area of conflict and they want to avoid it. They don't, especially with people who are family or have been in their life. Are strongly in their lives. They don't want to confront somebody about it, but you can just cull it. You can just listen and just let it pass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, so I had a conversation.
You don't have to have a big confrontation.
No, I had a conversation, and I have this conversation a lot with clients, but a couple times already since yesterday, twice actually, with different people about when someone says something, either and they are unsolicited and you don't want their input, right? And you don't like their input. One, you can just listen and say, I heard what you said. And but the way I always approach that is it's noted, and you do it not in a snarky way. You say your input's noted. And if they continue or whatever, and they really want, you say, I haven't solicited for your opinion, but I'm taking it under advisement and I really appreciate it, but thank you. So you're not getting into a confrontation. You're getting into a peace bubble of healthy, firm boundaries of, I've noted what you said, but I'm really not looking for what you have to offer, right? Because people feel compelled to say that. The other thing I tell people to say to their friends, family, partners, others, whatever business is, I will ask, and this is a technique we do in being in psychology, is, do you want me to just listen, or would you like my feedback? And people don't do that.
Right.
They just automatically assume that you want to hear what they have to say.
And that you're going to tell them it's great.
And because they want the self-verification of like,
that's why they're doing it.
Right. And so, you had a hold on that one. So yes. So there's a lot of talk, especially in sports I'll talk about it from running point of view. People will say all the time, like, share your goals with all your friends that are runners. Oh. Do not do that. No. Do not do that. And this is
especially not runners. Right. I mean, not whatever sport you're involved in.
And that goes across the board. There's been research back and forth over the past couple of decades about how when you get motivated, having an accountability buddy or just a buddy with you, that's one thing. But when you share with too many people, you're opening yourself up to getting discouraging input.
Yep.
And that is a kiss of death of dreams. It's a kiss of death of dreams for so many people, because when you share your goals with most people and they're not aligned, like I said last week, they're not aligned with you or close to being aligned, there goes your train. Your train is going to go right off the tracks, likely, because you have to have the capacity to be able to keep it on the rails. And if you're already looking for external validation, going back to the first thing, and then that discouraging input comes in from 5 different sources when you should only have one source that you're telling about this thing, who is the person that should be exemplifying the knowledge base for that, then you're in trouble.
And knows your situation.
That knows your situation or knows how to be in your situation, and they've done it or they know how to do it, then you want to make sure that
because I'm not picking on runners, but to keep that analogy going, everyone has a different path to their accomplishment, and they're going to advise you on their path, which may not work for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And staying in that mode, this happens a lot in sports, especially individual sports. There's a lot of opinion about how you should do it.
Yep. And
when you tell people like you're doing something, I mean, using my example, marathon running, right? I'm not an elite marathoner. I probably could be if I didn't have a full-time job and could do it all the time, right? But I'm not.
Yeah.
So I know exactly who I am and what I want to be and how I'm going to get there. And if I'm not doing it, that's on me and whatever. And But people, as soon as you say, like, they go right to, what's your time? What do you like? They have all these measurement things about that. And that's part of that. What do people think about you?
Exactly.
Because they judge how you are as a runner. Don't judge me on how fast I go.
They're doing in comparison right off the bat.
Right. Yeah. That I'm, I'm either Shalane Flanagan, or I'm not. Yep. Well, I'm not. And so it doesn't matter. That's why when people ask me, most 99.9% of the time, what's your time? I say, finish and not die. Finish and not die. Make it mile by mile. And I say it facetiously, but I also am very serious about it, because that is to keep my inner peace in my bubble and not get discouraged by other people's input, because you see the discouraging roll of the eyes of like, oh, you only do it in 5 hours. You only do it. And, I had wonderful Chris DeOrio, right? And he finished the marathon as the last person 2 years in a row, I believe. I don't want to like put that out there if it's wrong, but I know at least 1 year. He was the most inspiring story. He has the best story. I would rather listen to his story all day long of how he got from A to B to the finish.
Yep.
And I listened to him, sat around, watched him, because that was more inspiring to me, because he's more of a runner because he runs with heart. That doesn't mean that, Meb Kavlesi, who's, one of the top elite runners in the country, what isn't amazing. And he has a great story, but I like Chris's story because it's real. They're both real, but they meet the masses more. But this Sinatra,
isn't Ricky.
Frank Sinatra comes into my head. I did it my way.
Too many people have the attitude, the Ricky Bobby attitude. If you're not first, you're last.
Right.
Well, that's not the way it works in a marathon.
Exactly. And
finish and don't die.
Well, exactly. And now, they've got this whole thing of like, oh, if you don't finish within 6 hours, and everybody's just running their own journey. And that's just like life. Everybody's on their own path. And so if you're on a path and you've got people that want to come on your path with you and they align with you and they get what you're doing and they get why you're doing it, awesome. I have a couple people every year, 12 years of doing this, and I still have people in my life who I tune out, but it has a flicker now. It used to really bother me. Now it's just a flicker because I'm doing my actual practice. Yep. But their comment is, even to like last week, I had someone sit down on my couch and like, we're still doing this marathon. And that was how they put it. I'm like,
really?
yeah. And I was like, yes, we are. And I'm like, I do it for a really good fundraising reason. And I do it for charity to bring money in for people. And that helps me in my heart. And they're like, well, why don't you so the question was, why don't you just fundraise and just give the money? It's a full package. The run itself, right? And I don't want to have to annoy people by talking about this, but I will. But the run itself is the full circle moment of when you wrap it all together. Because when you're out there, you remember why you're running. I'm running for Susan Hurley this year, who died of ovarian cancer, who was one of my best buddies in the charity team program, who started charity teams, who worked on the New England Patriots, who there's so much in the reasons why almost all of us run in charity to raise money. And there are the ones who qualify and get 2 hours and 10 minutes, and they raise money too. So people think it's just people that are out there just to get a bib. No, there's a purpose behind it, that we do it because we have a full circle moment. There's a reason why the year that I had my gallbladder shit the bed and I couldn't get off the line, and I went back 2 weeks later and ran the marathon, and people thought I was absolutely crazy.
No.
Even up until recently, when I tell the story, because people are like, oh, what happened? I'm like, oh, and they're like, oh, because some people say that one doesn't count. It counts.
Yeah.
Dave McGilvery even said it counts for me, right?
But
it's like I did it because I needed to do it for all the people who can't do it. And I know that sounds cliche and cheesy, but I also did it because it was my bubble. It was my purpose. It was what I needed to do. If I hadn't have done that year, even though, and by the way, I hadn't had my gallbladder out yet either, because I hadn't figured out what was wrong. And I still ran the whole thing and finished. on my own time in 2 weeks later. And people were just like, that's so stupid. I would never do that.
But think about
That's
the
a
pathology
discouraging.
of somebody who doesn't run a marathon criticizing someone who does run a marathon.
Mhm.
You have no experience in what's going on. Just
Mhm.
what my question for them is, what are they getting out of that? What do they need out of that exchange with a criticizing running the
crab
marathon?
in the
Exactly.
bucket. It's the crab in the
Yeah.
bucket. And it's not. And by the way, this isn't. You can apply this.
I mean, I think you're all nuts, but I don't.
And that's fine.
But do what you do. It's fine.
Right.
Great.
But you can. But that's the thing is, you can apply this to anything.
Yeah.
I'm just using the easiest one in my purview right now because it's so fresh in my mind, and I have so many inputs going on right now. I'm going to have so much input coming in that's discouraging, but from now up until like a week after. Because that's what happens around marathon time. But runners are like the best family in the world, but we have a lot of discouraging input because it gets very competitive and it's just all these things. So going back to the point of share your goal of what you're doing with very few people.
Yep.
Keep it like in-house, keep your internal feel to yourself. Limit conversations that leave you feeling drained or doubtful. So when someone starts saying something like what I got the person on my couch going like, oh, when are we going to not do this anymore? And I literally don't even remember engaging it. I think I switched subjects so fast that I just remember the comment and know that person does say it consistently every year. And why? And they run. But they don't do marathons.
Here's the key, though. You don't ask the question, is she right? Or is he right? You have self-validation, internal validation.
Right.
And it's easy at that point to just kind of shrug it off.
It's unsolicited information. It does not align with what I'm doing. And it's not even that in that person's, those two people's case, it's not noted.
Right.
I note it in terms of being able to talk about it because I'm using it as a leverage point to share my experience so that people can learn from it. But it doesn't note in my head. It's like, because I love it, but I don't have. So
but
then
if you haven't developed your self-validation,
right,
you can get rocked by a comment like that.
Exactly.
You can doubt. It can introduce doubt.
Well, and when that happens, you go into that, and I've talked about this in other shows, you go into the jade moment where you end up justifying, you get into like sort of this argument with self and the other person.
Yep.
And then, and you go into debate mode and you go into excuse making. And so JAD, stay away from like that.
Yeah.
You don't have to justify, argue, defend, or make excuses for why you're doing your thing.
Right.
Stay internally fueled by, the comment came in, it bounced right off my bubble, and I was like, because I expected it.
That's a tell, too, if you start to go into that mode where you're starting to justify it.
Right. Like, oh, yeah, exactly.
Because of their opinion, as opposed to your own internal opinion of what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I think I think you have to be able to apply that to absolutely everything and anything, because it's not marathon running, it's anything.
Yep.
If people have something to say about something and it's not in your alignment, you got to internally validate to move forward, because it will suck you dry, and that crab in the bucket will pull you back in.
Yep.
So limiting your conversations that leave you feeling drained or doubtful, and replace that back chatter with better input. That means listening to podcasts like this or other ones that are positive, reading things that are like uplifting, looking up people online who are supporting your direction on YouTube. Like, I saw someone that's working on getting a new job and signing up to get an LLC and creating a new life for themselves while they're leaving their job. And I've helped them get into all those spaces, and they're like, oh my God, it helps the back chatter go away.
Yep.
Right. Because now you have resources where it is replacing the outside chatter. You're listening to people who are doing or have done exactly what, and there's so much resourcing out there now out in the world and online. And or in reading or on radio, that you can get such good material, and it's not all algorithm to something negative. So it's super important to look for that, because the environment that you create around you, around your, what people think about you, the environment you create matters. It really matters to how successful you become, because you can partially you can fully design your own space to be as successful as you want it to be if your environment is protected by what you put into it and what you don't allow in it.
Right.
So, okay. So moving on from sort of like the motivator, demotivator people types, right? Internal fuel comes from using micro commitments. Now that's when we start talking about those stacking wins. To stay consistent, you have to use micro commitments. So when motivation starts dropping, whether it's because of other people or because you have a discouraging moment, don't get into this whole thing where people say willpower, just
no.
because I do love the Nike slogan, just do it. But again, I tell everybody, since that slogan is just do it, you have to actually put action to it. It's not just words. So the action has to be there. So don't rely on, well, I have willpower to do it. You have to actively be in your head doing, I'm going to do 10 more minutes. I've come this far. Like when I was running the other day, and my calf, it was on a pitch on the Kankomagus, and it's downhill. I was doing downhill. I'm like, oh God, this is like death. But I kept saying, I'll just do 10 more minutes. And I chunked it. Remember I talked about chunking it, like chunk your moments, right? I'm just going to go to the next mile and see how my calf feels. And, so you're talking to yourself at all times, making micro commitments in the moment to yourself, so that is what is working for you. It's like going out, marathons on the mind, obviously. If you start at the first mile and you go, oh my God, I have 26 to go.
Right.
It is going to overwhelm you.
Yep.
Every mile is literally in my head a tick, like tick, 1 mile down, 2 miles down. And then when I hit over the heartbreak hill, there's 5 miles left. I'm like, 5 miles to go.
Yep.
4 miles to go. 3 miles to go. Right. So you have to do life like that. Everything has to be these little micro commitments on a daily that are just about like, I'm just going to do 5 minutes of exercise today. I'm going to make sure that I eat 3 good things today.
Yep.
Like I'm going to make sure I put $5 in my envelope for travel today and $5 in my envelope for, my special treat, like whatever it is, it's about those micro commitments you're making to yourself that you don't miss. So you can go like, I did it.
Yep.
I did it.
Stack a win.
And stacking wins.
Yep.
And so whether you want to call it stack a win or, commit micro commitments, I'm trying to get people to understand that small piece that gets you to the big piece.
Yep.
The outcome goal will come. It will come if you do all the micro pieces.
Too many people overwhelm themselves with the outcome goal. Right. I got to lose 30 pounds. I got to run 26 miles. I got to save $10,000.
Right.
It's not the way it works.
Exactly.
It's not how you get there.
Mm-mm. But that's why people on January 14th fail the weight loss thing, is because they set the goal too high.
Don't lose 30 pounds. Just eat well tonight.
Right. And focus on that. So that you see at the end of the week, maybe your jeans fit you a little bit different, or you can button that shirt or whatever. That's all that matters there. Or your sleep is a little bit better. I mean, it could be so many markers on this, right?
Yep.
Okay. So when we talk about resetting the mindset, this is where that is. This is a reset mindset technique. So because what it does is it gives you momentum and it gives you energy to feel motivated when you go, oh, I did that for 10 minutes. I went the extra. Now, if you've ever been an athlete, and especially us as runners, we're crazy, as you know. If we come up short, and I want to run 3.5 miles today and I'm at 3.47, I will run in a circle until I hit that, right? Or if I want to run 10 minutes and then I've gone to 11:05, I have to get to the next even number. And it's not 12, it's usually like 15.
Right.
So because that's the momentum of the energy, that once you've made that micro commitment,
that's the fuel. That's how you emotionally feed.
That's how you internally feel yourself, because it's what gets you going. It's what makes you feel like, oh my God, I've got this and I can do more. When the beginning is like, oh, you walk in, you're like, oh, I don't even want to take the first step. It's like, all you have to do is take that first step and keep moving forward. Yep. Right. So big way to change your mindset. Okay. So how to reset your mindset when someone else throws you off truly is something you can train yourself to do, because there's so many people that are always throwing us off.
Yep.
Same thing I just said about media and podcasts and all that will throw you off too, because then you might feel like you're not measuring up. right?
Yeah.
So I have like a 3, sometimes 4-step like way of doing this, and I'll give you a quick version of it. So the first thing is interrupt the spiral or the I call it the chaos loop, which I've talked about in terms of relationships before.
Yep.
Interrupt that spiral. So pause, nice slow pause, right? Don't react immediately. We're going to go to response mode, right? So that first step is interrupt the spiral by pausing and taking a physical step away for a second if you have to, or a mental step away from something.
Yep.
Take a break, right? The second step is reframe whatever's happening. Like when the person said, "Oh my God, we're still doing this another year," right? So reframe that. Is this something that they're saying that's objectively true, and or is this just their perspective?
Right.
It's just their perspective, and do we care? No. Why? Because they're not an expert in our mindset of this, and so we don't care about that.
They don't get it.
They don't get it. And does what they're saying change my goal? If what they're saying as an external, unaligned, non-participant changes my goal, you have just lost your internal validation and your fuel, because
why should their opinion weigh more than yours?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And why should it change your goal? Because, I want to do another year of running, or I want to do this next thing, like, why do you want to do that? Because I do. Why does it matter? How's it impacting you? It's not like, so these are the things you have to say in your head in that reframe of what's happened in a moment, right? Of someone saying, well, why would you want to move, south? Well, because I want to have another house where it's warm, and maybe I'm doing an investment. Why do you want to make $1 million this year? How do you think you're going to ever do that? Well, because I'm really motivated to do that. And I want it. Like, I'm just thinking of different people in my life that are like,
I've got my hands on my wheel.
I'm doing my life, and whether that happens or not, I'm still going in that direction. So why does it matter to you?
Yep.
Right. So being very clear about like that reframing, and going into, is that person objectively stating a fact with you, and are they aligned, or are they just giving you a perspective that has nothing to do and it's just back chatter and filtered out?
Yep.
And then, because most of the time it has no relevance to your life, and
then
it's
them working their lives.
It's exactly, and trying to infiltrate yours, because what they're trying to do is gain control. Like I said last week, gain control over yours, which makes them feel more in control of theirs, because their fear has come up because your goals are making them fearful.
Right.
Because they're losing some kind of control, whether they think you're leaving, abandoning, getting one up on them, better, all those things.
Yep.
And they'll never admit that. Those people typically will not admit that.
May not understand it.
Right. They don't, because usually they're not aware of it.
Right.
They just do it because it comes naturally. And then the third thing is to return to action quickly. So once these things are like that in this plan, do one small task when that all that stuff happens. Do one small task related to your goal, so that you know that you're right back on track. And action, not words, not just do it. Action is the fastest way to break emotional drift. If you take an action on something, once someone has tried to like get you off your mark, if you take an action, whatever you're trying to do, that will get you away from derailing that train track or going on an emotional drift, because the action will snap you back into, oh, that's right, that's why I'm doing this.
It's more powerful.
It's way more powerful than whatever they said or whatever they're doing to derail you. So super important there. I just had a moment. I was looking at the clock.
Take an action.
I know. I just had a moment because I was looking at the clock, and I'm like, the clock, I was reading it wrong. And I was like, wait, that's not right. Sorry. I was looking at my time. And the next piece to that, okay, so there's your 3-part there. But the next piece to this is separate out your identity from other people's opinions. Now, this is kind of like the aligning, but in a different way. So hearing this really clearly, separate your identity. Who am I? I am not your opinion.
Right.
I am not what you think of me. We're taught that, though.
Yep.
We are taught, we are socialized into that so much, but we are not. So really separating out, I am me and I am not your opinion. And what you think of me does not need to change me.
Right.
And unsupportive people, and there's so many, right? Unsupportive people often project their fears, their limits in a big way, right? Their uncomfortability and their comfort zones.
Yep.
So and I find that that's an easy read. When you have an unsupportive commentary or behavior come at you, you can easily go into, oh, this is coming from their insecurity, their fear, their uncomfortability, and they're out of their comfort zone. And if you absorb that as the taker and as they're giving it to you, and if you absorb that, it will become your ceiling.
Right.
That's it. It becomes your ceiling. And if you recognize it as theirs and not yours, you can just blow past it. But it will cap your ceiling. There will be no movement, because all of a sudden that becomes who you are. They have just dictated to you without you even realizing it. If you don't stay aware of that you are now theirs.
Giving them power over your outcomes.
Exactly. Right.
Which we are so willing to do.
And because one, people don't stay in their awareness. They don't take the pause and recognize to do what I just said in the last little 3-step process, and they allow it to happen. So that's the whole thing when people say, why does this always happen to me? And I always respond with, why do you allow it to happen?
Right.
Because one is external's fault versus you're not using your hands on your wheel, and I'm going to play the victim.
It happens to me.
It happens to me. No. I mean, that's not to take away that sometimes things happen to people.
Yes.
Obviously. But this is in the general scheme of things of like, if you're repeating a behavior and over again and wondering, why does this keep happening? What are you going to do different to not allow that to happen? Where are you going to take control of situation? And when people say, I don't have any control, that's never big word, never true. There's places where you have control. There's not always places, but there are always some.
People often don't want to recognize that because it establishes responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then and accountability.
It's not me, it's happening to me.
To me. Right. Yeah. And so therefore I have no control. Therefore, if it fails, then it's not my fault.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And that's a good cop out. And it's right. And then it builds resentment. That's a whole nother show. True story. Okay.
Again, it's everywhere though.
It is. And that's why I wanted to address it in the year of Rise, because it's so influential in rising and being able to reset and integrate and stand up in your own way and stand out and evolve, because this gets in the way.
Yep.
It is number one. I swear this is number one of the things, right? That's why I'm doing this.
It's almost institutionalized at this point.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like the social norm. Like we are raised like this. Like, So speaking of this, let's create a reset ritual, right? A reset ritual, like right? So have something to do every time you get thrown off track. So that means you have to pre-think and stay aware. God forbid we have to pre-think and stay aware. So these are distractors, but they're reset rituals.
Yep.
Right? Go for a walk. Listen to a specific song. Like I have 2 songs.
Both.
And I do. Yeah. Right. So I'll walk and I'll listen. I have 2 songs that I'll put on repeat when I know that I'm being put off track, and it works so great. Right. Just from own experience. And I have other people do it and they're like, that works so good. Right. So reread something that's inspirational to you. Reread your goal or your goal sheet if you have one. Do a quick workout. Call your one person you've told, or talk to that one person you've told, just to have like a quick chit chat about something.
Yep.
But do something that's is ritualistic to every single time you get set off track. You're going to do that, or have a list. So it's your resource list, but it's a reset ritual list. I'm a big doer of doing my own internal bubble thing, which is finding that song or my 2 songs, and I go right to them and I listen to them, and or I walk and listen to them or I run to them. Go work out and I run to them. So if I feel like I'm getting demotivated, like when I was on my 16-mile run the other day, I did have Spotify on the mountain.
Did you?
It was crazy. It did not break off.
No cell service, but Spotify?
I couldn't get cell service, but I could get Spotify. It was funny because people were trying to get a hold of me because they were like, oh my God, she's out there and the bears are out there, and, whatever. And then as soon as I crossed past Lincoln Woods, they were like, oh my God. And all these texts started coming in. It was so funny. But but there was a moment, because that's a long distance, right? And
Yep.
so here I am running, and there was a moment or two or 10 where my calf was, because of the pitch, I was getting a calf thing. And I just put my little songs in, because it was derailing me. Now, it wasn't a person derailing me, but it was my
Right.
thoughts that started saying, like, I can walk, I can give up, I can just.
But when the noise starts to accumulate, that a reset routine is a great idea.
Yes, exactly.
For me, it's the car
Yep.
and a bunch of songs. I
Yep.
get a thumbnail drive of
Yep.
my stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Car ride, go for a quick, or people with motorcycles. Michelle would talk
Yep.
about going on a motorcycle and just letting it ride, so to speak.
Yep.
Because it's what puts you into it's the inspiration mode. It's the thing that gives you the inspiration to keep on going. And that's super important, because
Plus it lowers the noise level.
well, it lowers the noise level, because it trains your brain to go back and reset itself to being back on track. When our noise level is off the chart, we're not on our track.
Right.
So that's the way it really reshapes us and puts us in our focus. And then the last
reset routine is a great idea.
Yes.
Such a great idea.
Yeah, reset routines are super important.
Yeah.
It's really, that's why when people leave work, if you're actually not working from home, if people are listening and doing this, you can do a reset ritual every single day. When you leave home,
Oh yeah,
you imagine yourself turning off the home light, because now you're going into work life. And then when you leave work, your reset ritual is you make sure you turn off the work light, and you go, like, you actually mentally pivot it in your brain, so that you know that's a great, just everyday kind of thing. Now, if you're working from home and you're working one little spot, like an office inside or a bedroom, you have to do exactly the same thing. It's a reset ritual, so that you know that you're home versus you're at work, and if it's in the same place. And that was a big thing during the pandemic that I had to do with a lot of people, because they got it too blurred and it became too crazy for them.
Right.
And then it was very demotivating. Right. So, okay. The last piece of this today is being realistic and firm with yourself and others. Be realistic and firm with yourself and others. Not everyone's going to understand what you're doing, as we know, right? Not everyone's going to want to understand it. Not everyone's going to be on your path. They don't want to know your journey. Well, they do, because they want to break you down.
Right.
But not everyone's going to understand your path. And that's okay. And you have to accept that that's fine. If you're waiting around for their approval, you're going to stall.
Yep.
And so that's not being realistic, because if you're a hopeaholic and you're waiting for someone else to fall in line with you and make it happen with you, well,
Yep.
So you have to be able to tell yourself, I don't need everyone on my side. And actually, I don't actually need anyone on my side to do this goal. Right. It would be nice to have someone, but you don't need it. What you do need, so if we take people off the chart, what you do need in your life for rising and the year of you again is clarity, self-clarity, consistency, right? So you have, right? And you have to have a way of recovering quickly when you get knocked off balance, which is that reset ritual. So clarity, consistency, and reset ritual. And that is what's going to keep you from getting your internal fuel drained by others who will derail you.
Yep.
And so when people ask, like, know right away when people say, oh, what are you doing that for? And you get a glimmer of negativity.
Right.
Immediately go into your mind and go, I have clarity, I have consistency, and I will reset right now of back chatter, filter it out, I'm out.
It's my thing. Makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it works.
That's valid.
If you only try and do this once, because I will guarantee that most people are ritualized into the negative mindset of this hundreds of thousands of times over their lifetime. If you only try this once or twice and then come back to me, which people do, and say, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I just laugh. I do. I laugh. I say, of course it doesn't work. And they're like, what do you mean? You told me it would work. I said, you have to do it over and over and over. You can't just do it a couple of times. It takes 5,000 to 10,000 tries for a baby to take their actual first step. Just their first step.
Wow. Yeah.
So if you think you're going to go out after years and years and years or hundreds of thousands of times of being derailed by other people and their thoughts and being all people pleasing and apologetic for everything you do because you are so sorry for living and existing, and you think that I you go out and take my advice and go out and try to change it in one day and come back and tell me it's not working, I'm going to say, sure, it's not working, because you walked into these woods a long time. So now you just got to keep practicing it. Internal fuel, peace bubble, hold it together.
You mean delayed gratification?
Well, that's another thing.
What
too.
is that?
Delayed gratification, God forbid, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I'm very, very optimistic for people. If they do follow what I was saying last week, and they do follow this without having to go into therapy or going into like a life coaching situation, like with me or something like that, you can piecemeal this together, at least to have a fair enough understanding of activating on this. Certainly go out and listen to other podcasts about, mindset resets. This is my version of how I see it and how I do it, and how I also teach my clients and people in my life, and use for myself, and it works.
Find your tribe.
And find your tribe. And it's also, and please bear with the fact that, everything that I use, all the techniques I use, have empirical validation, which means that they are validly used across a generalizable population, because they've been researched in a way to a point where we know they work. And then I tailor them to make sure that they fit whatever, right? So you got to either do it yourself, or you got to find someone that does it like me to help you with that. But certainly you could do that.
And people this repeats all the time, but people need to recognize it's not linear. You have good days and you have bad days. You do it well some days, you do it poorly some other days.
And that thought, just the thought, without even an outside person saying it, your own thought of having it be like, oh my gosh, it's not working because you are in the mindset of linear, is part of the exact thing I'm talking about today. If you're in the mindset that it's linear and you get discouraged because all of a sudden it had a bump in the road, you've got to have clarity, consistency, and reset your mindset with a ritual. You need to get back to, of course, it's never going to be a straight line, ever. And there's going to be peaks and valleys, and some are going to be lower and higher, and it's going to be up and down, and it's round and round, and you have to be able to go with that flow, as I did last week.
Yes, you did.
It might have taken a little bit out of me last week, but that's what happens when you're doing 7,000 things. But
you get there.
And I still worked, and I still did. Here comes that little thing. And I still took care of emergencies. Imagine that I could actually take care of emergencies at the same time as functioning as any other human being.
Wow.
God forbid.
That one stuck with you.
It really did. Yeah. There's an influence that came in. It doesn't influence me in a way that changed my behavior. It just solidified how actually...
It didn't undermine you.
No, it motivated me. It motivated me to be able to be like, oh, really? You want to think that I don't? You have no idea how good at time management I am. I am on top of things. So anyway, so you guys, if you would like to donate, again, I have 3 weeks to go to the Boston Marathon for the New England Patriots Foundation. Thank you all again for all the things that everyone's done so far. If you'd like to donate in, any little bit counts. 5, 10, 25, 50, 100, 1,000. Please do. I would love to, because I'm competitive. I'd love to get to 20,000 and call it a day. If not, it's not the end of the world, but I appreciate everybody for everything that they've done. And I will see you next week.